administrative tasks, making meals, and fighting fires. Now it's your turn. Find out how to become a volunteer firefighter by visiting scvolunteerfire.org.
Kid, you dreamed of being a firefighter one day. Now, the opportunity is yours. Answer the sound of sirens. Live your dream. Become a part of a team, a family. Visit scvolunteerfire.org to find out more.
I adored MDA summer camp. I miss it so much. I wish I could still go. Those years have definitely influenced a lot of things in my life.
I can remember the first time I went to summer camp. It was amazing because there were a boatload of kids just like me.
I really deeply credit camp for helping me to become an independent woman. My biggest takeaway is that that's where I learned to ask for help from other people.
We were very nervous the first time sending Jason away, and we left there feeling assured. These people are going to take good care of our son. So that's how I feel about MDA. Like they're like family, and they're going to take care of you.
What I like about summer camp is you fit in there.
It's so fun because you get to go swimming and see all your friends, and it's so awesome.
You make new friends, and you have memories that last a lifetime.
I like to have fun, and I like to make new friends. And camp is awesome.
Before I started going to camp, I never pictured myself doing a zip line, but now that's one of my favorite parts of camp. There's things I never thought I could do.
It's a really great experience to just do everything that everyone else does. You don't feel different, and it's just, I don't know, I just love it.
MDA camp has affected my life so much. It's really made me who I am today. I've made so many great friends, and I have so many great memories. It kind of broke me out of my shell from when I was a little kid.
I've been asked a lot over the years to express my thanks to sponsors and people who volunteer and donate their hard-earned money. And those kind of words are hard to find because there are not enough words invented to say thank you. Every dollar has given me hope. Every minute at camp has taught me lessons. And I'll forever be grateful for these 30 years of a relationship that I've had with MDA, and also to the people who continue to give and support.
Answering the call. Running in when everything you feel says run out. Pushing yourself beyond your known limits to help. Living to tell the story. Visit scvolunteerfire.org.
Our firefighter assistance and support team here in South Carolina, sponsored and developed by the South Carolina State Firefighters Association, is a program designed to provide emotional support and care to our firefighters and their families. As part of that outreach program, as a part of our response around the state, we provide training programs where the FAST team members will actually come to your departments and will provide training on various subjects related to behavioral health and behavioral health counseling. We have a wide array of programs, one called Behavioral Health Awareness, which basically tells you about the difficulties in the daily life of a firefighter and the kind of things that you will face as a firefighter. Second program, Curbside Manor, is a program developed through the National Fallen Firefighters Foundation that prepares firefighters and first responders to deal with those difficult issues for people in the public that they serve. How best can we respond to those people, the citizens and the people in the community who are facing difficult times during a tragedy or during a fire, and how we can best help them. Third program, Stress First Aid, also a National Fallen Firefighters Foundation program, prepares our firefighters and first responders in dealing with the everyday issues of being a firefighter and facing the difficulties that we face. We also have a peer training program where we can come into locales or local departments, and we can help develop and train peer teams so that there are peer team members within that individual community, and hopefully peer team members who will then become members of our statewide team. So there's a lot of different programs out there that we can offer. You can contact your state Firefighter Association office in Columbia at 1-800-277-2732. That's 1-800-277-2732, and request those programs, and we'll be glad to have someone from the FAST team come out and provide them.
Ladies and gentlemen of the South Carolina Firefighters Association, please stand for the presentation of our colors.
Would you join me in prayer at this time, please? Father in heaven, we just want to begin by thanking you for this day. Thanking you, Father, and giving you the praise for the day that you've made. We rejoice and we are glad in it. Father, we are thankful for this nation that we live in today. We pray your continued blessings upon it and your wisdom for our nation. Thank you for the health that we have just to be here this day. Thank you for Fire Rescue 2014. Thank you for everything that has already happened this week, for training, for encouragement, for fellowship. And we're thankful, Father, for the beginning of this session today and these opening ceremonies. We pray your continued blessings. Thank you for our association staff. Thank you for everyone who has worked so hard in bringing this about for this year. Father, we ask your blessings on Jonathan Jones, our president, as he leads today. Father, we ask your blessings on the speakers and everyone that's here in this place, for all who serve you by serving the people of South Carolina in the fire service. And so, Father, we ask you now for your wisdom upon everything that is done today, and we pray that ultimately you would receive honor and glory for it all. And we pray this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave.
Ladies and gentlemen, please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. You may be seated. It is an absolute, unbelievable honor for me today to officially call to order the 109th annual meeting of the South Carolina State Firefighters Association, and as president to officially welcome you to the 2014 South Carolina Fire and Rescue Conference. The theme of this year's conference is Saving Lives and Changing Lives, with a subtitle of Through Family, Finance, Fitness, and Fire Hose. I call them the 4 Fs. I believe that these are the core issues that the fire service must address to provide true cultural change and lasting strength. I believe that these issues holistically affect the fire service, from recruitment, retention, to line of duty deaths. You know, fire and tactics are important, but the majority of line of duty deaths don't happen because of fire tactics. And I contend that a large number of the coronary events that we attribute as the cause to nearly half of our line of duty deaths have underlying contributing factors that don't necessarily have direct ties to physical fitness levels. I contend that many of our brothers and sisters that come to work, either on shift or on the scene as it may be with volunteers, preloaded with stress that has nothing to do with the incident or the firehouse. The two top sources of external, meaning away from the firehouse, stress for most people come from the areas of family and finance. These two issues are personal, and therefore they're tough conversations to have. But if we dug a little deeper, I'm willing to bet that we would find one or more of these issues as stress contributing factors in the lives of a surprising number of our coronary-related line-of-duty deaths. From the recruitment and the retention side of the house, family and finance play huge roles. When we recruit a new firefighter, paid or volunteer, we are, or at least we should be, recruiting their family as well. If the family doesn't support their calling or desire to be part of the fire service, they'll either not last in the fire service or they'll endure added stresses from the family because of the resentment of time away. Due to the economy and our get it now, pay for it later lifestyles, many people have taken on what they view as insurmountable debt. When someone's working 2 or 3 jobs just to pay the bills, they certainly and understandably don't have time to volunteer. And for the career guys, Their minds are often not on the firehouse or the incident, but simply on making ends meet. Many don't have personal finance skills, and this adds to the stress because they don't know how to make it work, and most let their pride keep from asking for help. I'm not talking about helping people make financial investment decisions, because honestly, if you've got money to invest, you're not in the boat I'm rowing. I'm talking about helping people who are bailing water out of a sinking vessel, helping people to learn to manage what they have and figure out how to create breathing room between their income and their expenses, because everything is better with breathing room. Fitness is an issue that's always in front of us. We know it's an issue, we spend a lot of time talking about it, but we seldom put our words into action. Much like insurmountable debt, we let our insurmountable fitness issues keep us from doing anything. My desire is to help people do something, anything, by teaching them to navigate through their excuses instead of letting their excuses become roadblocks. I believe that cultures are changed by people whose lives have been changed in dramatic and recognizable ways. People who can't help but tell others about what their life was like before and after. People who inspire other people like them and show others that issues are excuses and they are not insurmountable. People like Brian Brazier from Aiken Public Safety. Brian's lost 90 pounds since October. Brian, are you out there? Stand up. Where you at? Cultures are changed by people like Brian who take it upon themselves, that navigate their excuses and don't let their excuses become roadblocks. People like Brian inspire others to do the same. Then, of course, there's the fourth F, fire hose. Well, you can't have a fire conference without firefighting and fire tactics. But the bottom line is we need to create breathing room on the fire ground. When we don't push our limits, in other words, don't go past the point of no return with our air, we have breathing room between the air that we have and the air that we use, things are better. When we have no breathing room and the unexpected happens, and it will, our margin for error is gone. The same is true with matching our tactics to our fire and to the fire and the resources that we have. When we create an environment where there is no breathing room between the tactics that we've implemented and the resources that we have to implement them, there is no room for error and no room for the unexpected. That's where thinking firefighters do it different, as Shane Ray would put it. I'm not saying that we resort to exterior firefighting. I'm not saying that in the least. But what I am saying is you can't always employ New York City tactics in York County, South Carolina resources. What I'm saying is the argument between experience and science truly rests somewhere in between, that we're better with the two. I hope that you enjoy your annual conference. It is your annual conference. This is the important part of this conference, is this is yours. You're the delegates, you're the members, you're the ones that make all this happen. And so I hope that you enjoy your conference. I hope that you get something out of the classes. I hope that you'll take advantage of the many activities and resources that are available to you here this week. And I thank you from the bottom of my heart for participating. At this time, I would like to ask Chief Alvin Payne, the host fire chief, to come and give us a welcome from his department and introduce our next speaker.
Good morning. Well, we've had 3 days already. A lot of you have been here for the hot classes, and they were indeed hot. 150 of you had the opportunity to visit one of our area golf courses, and we appreciate all the balls you left. I left my share. But the most important thing is that you are here, and that you're here to learn, you're here to network, you're here to meet new people. And for those, and that's a challenge I leave for you during this conference. Please take the time to learn something that you can take back to your fire department. Please take the time to meet someone new that may be able to help you down the road. And please make sure you have fun. It's all about having fun. When I came into the fire service, that was one thing that every day we came to work, we had fun. And I hope that in your fire department today that you still have that opportunity. If you need something while you're here in Myrtle Beach, stop at any of our 6 fire stations. We're here to help you. I would give you my cell phone number, but it's probably already out there. But you can call me anytime, and I'll be glad to come pick you up or do whatever we need, or I'll get someone that can do that for you. I hope you have a great week here. I hope you enjoy Myrtle Beach. I hope the weather stays good for you. You've got some great instructors that are coming up in the next day or two, and I hope you get a great opportunity to learn that extra thing that you came here for. With that being said, none of us would be successful if we didn't have the equipment that we have and we didn't have the apparatus and the people. We couldn't do that without our politicians. Last year I had to stand up here and be nice to my mayor, and he didn't give me anything. He cut my budget, but I still was nice to him. I've known this man for 35 years, and he loves Myrtle Beach more than anybody I know. This year he gave me some new fire trucks and some more people, so I'm going to be nice, and I'm going to tell you what a great mayor he is. But he does a great job. He does love Myrtle Beach, and it's my pleasure to introduce Mayor John Rhodes.
I remember him when he was running around the recreation department as a snot-nosed kid. You know, I want to thank you very much for coming to Myrtle Beach and choosing Myrtle Beach as your home for your convention. The thing is that I don't think people understood or realized the brotherhood that you have as firemen and rescue until after the 9/11. And then it sort of came to light as to how united that you were all over the country. And we thank you for that united efforts that you have. You know, people, unfortunately today, do not take time to say thank you. You know, it's just like here, we built our business in this community years ago when someone checked into the hotel or came to a restaurant, had a meal, had their visit. We always said, thank you for coming, please come back. As time progresses on, sometimes we forget our manners, and we don't do that. The three most important people in every community in this country do not get recognized the way they should. Who are they? Number one, the firemen and rescue. Number two, the police department. And the third group never, ever gets said thank you, and that's the school teachers. You are one of the three most important people in the lives of everybody in this country. And you do go sometimes unappreciated, but I really think down deep inside, people do appreciate it. They just forget to say it. So, as the mayor of Myrtle Beach, on behalf of Myrtle Beach, I want to say thank you very much for the job that y'all do in your cities. Most important, Lieutenant Richard Carter has served 20 years for Myrtle Beach Fire Department, who is retired, and from the city of Myrtle Beach, City Council, and all our residents, we want to thank him for his 20 years of service. Thank y'all very much, and have a great conference.
I'd like to introduce Assistant Chief Doug Klein from Horry County Fire Rescue to offer a welcome from his department.
Good morning. On behalf of Horry County Fire Rescue, the County Administrator Chris Eldridge, the Fire Chief Fred Crosby, the entire command staff from Horry County Fire Rescue, and the 700 men and women who serve this county, we would like to say welcome. And I echo what Chief Payne said about networking and learning. That is very critical while you're here. And the best of the best across South Carolina come here to train. You have some of the best instructors that come in from across the nation. I see several sitting in the front, good friends, Rick Lasky, John, we're so glad to have you. We have a lot to be proud of here in South Carolina, and we welcome you to Horry County. Chief Payne and the Myrtle Beach Fire Department are the host city, but take advantage of all the things across the Grand Strand. If there's anything that we can do while you're here, do not hesitate to speak to anybody with an Horry County Fire Rescue patch or any of the men and women who serve this great county, from Murrells Inlet Garden City all the way to North Myrtle Beach, all the way across to Loris and the western part of the county. Welcome and have a great, great conference.
It is now my pleasure and honor to induct two individuals into the South Carolina State Firefighters Hall of Fame. Our first Hall of Fame inductee is Russ Fryer. Russ began his fire service career in 1973 with Mount Pleasant Fire Department as a volunteer and went full-time with them in 1974. He rose to the rank of Assistant Chief with Mount Pleasant. In 1982, he was hired by Carolina Power and Light and Fire Protection and Robinson Nuclear in Hartsville. After 14 years there, he came to work at the South Carolina Fire Academy, where he started out in curriculum and rose to the superintendent's position. In 40 years, Russ has impacted thousands of firefighters around South Carolina. He oversaw the move to the Essentials program for firefighter training and moved us from slides to PowerPoint to now online training as instructors. He opened the Academy's print shop and then moved us to the digital age with online registration and classes. He loves the fire service, and it was and is the life of our first Hall of Fame inductee, Samuel Russ Fryer.
Wow, it's kind of hard. You know, it took me 40 years to get to the main podium in this association, but hey, I'm glad to be here. And they're right, you can hardly see out there, believe me, but as Jonathan, as you were saying, I do love the fire service. And over these 40 years, I have my wife Sheila and my 3 boys to thank for allowing me to have the time. And I can tell you truthfully, back when I started in the Mount Pleasant Fire Department, I think my wife was more involved than I was, because I was lucky in those days. I had 2 walkie-talkies and I left one home all the time. And I'd get back home from the fire and she'd have the walkie-talkie sitting up on the bedstand. And she started asking me all about the fire. And I said, Sheila, I have no idea what you're talking about, because I didn't hear it on the fire ground, but she heard it. So that's how involved she was. But there's so many people in 40 years, and and I had a great opportunity by being able to serve in the town of Mount Pleasant, the industrial fire side. And I tell you, for the last 18 years before I retired, but I'm still working there part-time now, 19 years, your fire academy has been great. And it gave me some opportunities. When I became superintendent under my good friend Shane Ray, I tell you, he brought with us, firefighters do it different. We need to do it different, because things have greatly changed over 40 years. I can remember we used to pull up the truck, pull the brake, put it in pump, pull the tank pump, take off with both booster lines. I don't know why we carried 1.5 inches in those days. I don't know why you even carried them, but we did. And we learned to fight fire. Believe me, it's time to put some more tools in your tool bag. But I have to up here just thank one other person, the chief of Mount Pleasant Fire Department back in 1973, that gave me the opportunity to join that department. And believe me, Mount Pleasant has greatly changed since 1973. But Chief Cyrus Pye, I tell you, he loved the fire service. I believe that's where I got it from. But he gave me the opportunity. And one other person was my father. He was a volunteer in the town of Marion. And when I was 5 years old, and I say 5 because I remember my 5th birthday, and I can actually remember my 5th birthday, believe it or not, but that's when I started going on fire calls, when I was 5 years old. So now you can say I've been responding in fires for 60 years, I reckon you could say. But he loved it, I loved it, and I need to say one other thing, Jonathan, and I'll. But you know, back in the town of Marion, and there's some history here, way back as far as probably 1963, and this was not me, this is my older brother, but they started a junior rescue firefighter program in 1963. And I thought that was fantastic. But look where we're at today. Look at all the boys and girls we are training in high school. Man, it's mind-boggling. I mean, really. We had Southeastern Fire School up in Columbia. We had over 150 explorers out for demonstrations, just like tonight, what they're going to do tonight. That is fantastic. But it's the least we can do. We train them right, bring them in, hey, and they're going to serve for 40 years too. And I do want to thank the association for this honor. It is a great honor, and I do appreciate it. Thank you all very much.
And many of you don't realize this, but Russ is also an inventor. As superintendent, actually I guess as assistant superintendent, Russ invented the bag of appeasement. And I want to tell you, as a 15-year training officer, I appreciate your invention.
Hey, buddy. Thank you.
Thank you, Russ. Our next Hall of Fame recipient can't be here today. It's past President Billy Gibson, and I could go through all of Billy's accomplishments, but I want to tell you the most important thing about Billy, and it's why he's not here, is he is at home with his brand new baby. As a lot of you know, that it came very prematurely and has had some health issues and actually came home for the first time this week. And so he's where he needs to be, and we will make sure that Billy gets his Hall of Fame award. And congratulations, Billy. Next, I'll ask Chief Mike Sonnefeld from Irmo Fire Department to please come and introduce our next speaker.
Good morning, everyone. How are you this morning? Good. I've got the pleasure to introduce someone this morning who is a very good friend of mine, a friend of the state of South Carolina, and a brother of all of ours. Retired Battalion Chief Jack Ohm. Jack is someone that I met during the chaos of 9/11 when I was in his station in Red Hook, Brooklyn. At the time, Jack was the Battalion Chief, Battalion 32 in Red Hook in the Brooklyn area. If you've never visited that area, it's a pretty unique area. You got a little bit of everything. So Jack has paid his dues. He is now retired from FDNY, 32 years. I think he wishes he wasn't. He went out on a line of duty injury, and I think he wishes he was back there every day. But like a lot of us, when you retire, you don't retire from this. You find something to do to continue your 30-plus years of what you were doing. That's helping people. Jack is one that has done that. Jack is one that has not forgotten South Carolina and what South Carolina and New York City's connection is. Jack spends his lifetime now as a full-time volunteer, and for many of you out there that are volunteers, you understand what that means. He's here to help people. That's what he's done all his life. Now he volunteers to do it. The Stephen Siller Tunnel to Tower Run is what he is part of now, just one of many of his projects. He helps almost all children's organizations that foundation comes across. The Hurricane Sandy Relief Fund, he's in charge of that. So this guy's probably, now I know why he wants to go back to work. He'd like to get that back on that shift. But Jack, when he retired, he retired as a commander over all the battalions, and that's a job I can't imagine, but as he said, he ran the wheels off that thing, and I believe it. Jack is a special friend to this state. There's a bond between South Carolina and New York City that Jack's going to talk about through their foundation, something that dates back to the 1800s. It's a very great story. We're proud to be friends with Jack and New York. He is here today. I'm not sure his wife would appreciate it, but he celebrated 31 years of marriage yesterday, and he's in Myrtle Beach today without her. So when his flight goes home tomorrow, we'll see how that works out for him for 32. But before Jack comes up here, what I'm going to do is there's a video we want you to see. Jack is one that he said South Carolina never forgot, and we haven't. I just read something in fire engineering last week that talked about how close we are to those words just being nothing more than that, words. Jack is somebody who puts never forget to action. Don't say it if you're not going to act on it. And the video you're about to see is exactly that. So watch this video. Jack will come up shortly after that. But when you look at that, think of Jack. This is what he's about. This is what he's bringing to this state. And we're looking forward to it. So video's coming.
September 11th, 2001, with 60 pounds of fire gear attached to his back, off-duty firefighter Stephen Siller made what to most would have been a difficult decision, but to him, it was his duty.
Without hesitation.
To protect us.
To save lives.
He ran in. Stephen's decision was what our first responders and military heroes do to protect us every day. Join us in honoring these men and women that keep us safe. This September, join the Tunnel to Towers 5K run and walk.
This time we would like to direct your attention to the start of the race, where wounded warriors and members of Team Semper Fi are there, ready to start the race.
There's a fire starting in my heart, reaching a fever pitch, and it's bringing me out the dark.
It's a beautiful day. Reminds me of September 11, which was also a beautiful day, but a day of horror. But because of the bravery of people like Stephen Siller, we were able to withstand it, we were able to come through it, and since then we've been protected by our military. We've been safe at home because of the sacrifices of the men you see up here and all of their brothers and sisters.
Good morning, everybody. Pretty incredible video, wasn't it? I see that hundreds of times because I travel all over the country on the 9/11 exhibit that the Siller Foundation had put together, and we show that video on the exhibit, and I get the chills every time I see it. Stephen was quite a man on 9/11. He made a great decision. You know, he was off duty going home to play golf. It was a beautiful September morning. Tuesday, not a cloud in the sky. Stephen was only 34 years old, married to a beautiful wife, Sally, father of 5 small kids. Turned his car around, went back to his firehouse, got all his gear, drove it to the Brooklyn Battery Tunnel. He got out and made a great decision in my mind. Put his gear on his back and ran through the Brooklyn Battery Tunnel, up West Street. Joined in a rescue effort. Unfortunately, Stephen died that day along with 342 other New York City firemen. I lost 20 men that morning. Stephen was the father of 5 small kids. But what the family did, and out of something so horrible, they made something so good. They created the Stephen Siller Tunnel to Towers Foundation. And we've been doing good things in Stephen's name ever since 9/11. We've been out to Haiti. We support an orphanage in Haiti. Stephen was an orphan by the age 10, so his 3 brothers and his 3 sisters actually raised him. So not only did they lose a brother that day, they felt like they lost a son. We've been out to Oklahoma. We've been down to New Orleans numerous times, doing good things to help people in Stephen's name. The best thing we do, in my opinion, is to build these smart homes for severely wounded service personnel coming home from the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan without their arms and legs. To me, as Mike said, and thanks, Mike, for that great introduction, but for me, to give back, and as firemen, you know the feeling to give back when you come home from a good job and you save somebody's life or you save somebody's property. That's the best feeling in the world. And like the mayor spoke before, I think everybody in the fire service knew how great our job was before 9/11. We all knew that inside. It's still a great job, still the greatest job in the world, if you ask me. I think after 9/11, people realized, yeah, the fire service really is a great job. So you get that feeling to give back, and that's what this foundation does. So why am I here down in South Carolina, you might ask? Well, it all started in 1867, and no, that's not the year I got on the fire department. Oh, you are alive, all right, good. Just checking. Started in 1867 when New York City sent a fire carriage down to Columbia, South Carolina. As you know, it was the Civil War time, and Columbia was burning, and New York City sent down a fire apparatus to help put out the fires in Columbia. And it was kind of forgotten about for years and years. 9/11 happens, and a school right in Lexington County, South Carolina, White Nose Middle School, doing some research, says that New York City finds out that New York City sent a fire carriage down to them in their time of need. So these middle school kids got together and raised over $550,000 and brought it up to my firehouse, because not only did we lose 343 firemen that morning, we lost a lot of apparatus and equipment. For some reason, they wound up in my firehouse around Thanksgiving week of 2001. Me and Mike were in a picture together. We didn't even know each other. I was just covering battalion chief at the time. And we were so busy with the events of 9/11 that, we just posed for pictures, and we, probably met each other, but, it wasn't that time to form bonds. So that was the way South Carolina repaid their debt to New York. And it could have stopped right there. The story could end right there, but the story gets better. In 2008, a man named Dan Hennigan, he's sitting right out here in front. He's now honorary New York City Battalion Chief. Dan realizes that these kids were in middle school, now are in high school, graduating, and would like to come up to the firehouse and see the fire truck and play. They're all band members, so they would like to play in a band at Carnegie Hall, at Ground Zero, and at my firehouse. So Dan gives me a call in December. I don't know him from Adam. Calls me up December. Now I'm the battalion commander. And he starts talking, and we make a schedule. We talk every Monday night to schedule 150 some odd high schoolers to come up and visit Ground Zero, my firehouse, and to play in Carnegie Hall. In fact, they also got to play on Good Morning America, which was, I'm sure, was a treat for them. So Dan, with his work, set this whole thing up. The kids come up, had a great time, great experience. A couple of days in New York City. Like I said, they played in Carnegie Hall, at Ground Zero, and in my firehouse, and on Good Morning America. So it was great. And it could have ended there, the story again, could have ended there. But Dan, being Dan, kept going, kept pushing, and realized that the Port Authority was giving away World Trade Center steel to cities that wanted to build memorials for their firemen and their first responders. So Dan recruited Mike Sonnefield and a couple other people and started a committee to form the South Carolina, Columbia, South Carolina First Responders Memorial, which is a beautiful memorial that Dan put up. And I flew down to dedicate it in 2011. Really remarkable. If you ever get a chance, I hope you do. Take a ride out to Columbia and see. It's probably the second best 9/11 memorial in the country. So that's my opinion. It's really, Dan, you really did a great job. Again, the story could have ended there, but it didn't. It keeps getting better. I talked to Dan about, hey, we got this great run in New York City, and this is, I mean, if you saw the video, so I get the chills every time I run through the tunnel. Every time I walk through the tunnel, I run through the tunnel, I see all my guys there. We have pictures of all the guys we lost. The American flags coming outside the tunnel, it's inspiring. We have 100 London Fire Service guys come over every year to run our run in New York City. They loved the run so much, they started a run in London. In 2009 was the first Tunnel to Towers run in London. So I was able to go over there and run in their first run for Tunnel to Towers in London, which was quite a thing. But me and Dan were talking about starting to run in Columbia because we have this bond now, we have this relationship, and we don't want to let it die. So we get it going, takes about a year or two, and in 2013, I think it was September 7th, 9th, September 6th. Good prompting, Dan. September 6th, 2013, we had our first Columbia, South Carolina run. We had over 2,500 runners, a lot of military guys. We paid respects to the Charleston 9, the Aiken 2, of course, the 343 New York City firemen we lost. And it was a great time, and it was a great run. So that's really why I'm down here. I'm down here to ask for your help to have all of your great departments participate in this run this year in Columbia, South Carolina, which is on September 19th at 7 o'clock in the evening. Come out, send a team, okay? Enjoy the run and see what kind of brotherhood that we have at these runs. We honor everybody, all the first responders, the military, the cops, the firemen, EMS. So it's really all-inclusive. It's something to see. If you ever get a chance, Nick Powell is out there. Nick's been up to New York. Nick is a fireman in Irmo, and he's brought a couple buddies up to New York City. So he's been up there, and he's running New York City's run. We have 10 other runs all over the country. Columbia, as of last year, as their first year, was our second biggest run in participants, okay? So Dan already has pledges of at least 2,000 military personnel from Fort Jackson are gonna run. You can see our run, we had 2,000 West Point cadets every year running our run. So it's really gonna be spectacular. I really urge you to come out, come to Columbia, spend the weekend, send a team out of runners. I run in Bunker Gear, you'll see me out there. I run in Fort Lauderdale, I run in Vero Beach. I also run a Columbia, South Carolina run. So I really urge everybody to come out and send a team. I'll be around all afternoon and all night. If there's any questions, I'll be at the state booth in the exhibit hall. So I'll be here to answer any and all questions if you have them. And again, I just urge you to get involved. Giving back, as Mike said, I'd rather be in a fire truck again. So you have to find a way to give back. So this is my way of giving back for a great career and saying thank you to our military that keeps us safe every year. So I urge you to come out and participate in the run in South Carolina, and thank you for your time. Thanks.
Before we get to our next award presentation, I want to introduce to you a team that works for you day in and day out, most of whom you've never met, and outside of introducing you now, most of whom you wouldn't meet. But I want to tell you that this team is phenomenal. This team is probably the most cohesive and genuine group of people I've ever met, especially in government. It's rare that you find a team that truly enjoys working together, a team that truly has each other's best interests at heart while not losing sight of the fact that their goals are for the citizens that they serve. So I'd like the team members from the division, from Labor Licensing and Regulation, LLR, to please come out, starting with Director Holly Fasark, Melina Mann, and Rochelle Taylor. Folks, these people are truly working for us. They're part of us and an extension of us, and I thank you for everything you do for us. And I want to give Director Fasark a chance to speak before we get to our next presentation, so the floor is yours.
I feel like I should sit down before I mess up all of the good remarks he just said about us. I promise that we have men on our senior management team other than Shane Ray. I thought I would bring the women to add to the diversity here in this room. Thank you for having us. On behalf of the governor, welcome to the conference. She regrets that she couldn't be here today. She has a press conference going on at 10 o'clock this morning to speak about the budget. Otherwise, she would be here. In her stead, she has sent me, for what that's worth, and she has also sent along a video greeting. But before we cue up that video, I want to address two things that I know are of great concern to the fire service. The first being Shane's replacement. I wish that I could stand in front of you today and announce to you who Shane's replacement is going to be, but we're not at that point yet. We're taking our time because we're trying to do the right thing and we're trying to find the right person. But what I can assure you is that the governor and I are looking for someone who is going to continue the good work of the division for the last 2 years and who will maintain the same customer service focus that we have had. Shane has graciously agreed to stay on until the beginning of August, and my hope is that before he departs, we will be able to announce to you who the new team will be, including the deputy over the fire academy and the deputy over the fire marshal side of the house. I promise that you all will be one of the first to know once we get there. The second issue is USAR funding. I know that the fire service over the last years has worked tirelessly to help us find a permanent funding source for our USAR program. What I can assure you is that the governor's office and LLR recognize the importance of that program. A couple of months ago, Joe Palmer, Cindy Conduras, Shane, and myself sat down with the governor's staff and started working on a permanent plan to identify permanent funding for that program. In the meantime, we have made good use of the $500,000 that the General Assembly allocated to us this year, updating some of the equipment that needed to be updated. For the upcoming fiscal year, we have identified approximately $380,000 in our budget, plus the General Assembly has allocated $250,000 of one-time non-recurring funding. So USAR will continue this next year, and rest assured that we're working on a permanent plan. And while we have USAR, we will do it the best we can with the resources we have, and we will look for ways to continue to fund it in the future. So with those two things, I'll ask them to cue up the video from the governor.
I'm Nikki Haley, and I want to welcome you to the South Carolina State Firefighters Association's annual conference. I am so sorry I can't be there with you in Myrtle Beach as we got tied up with the budget, but I want to thank you for everything you do to take care of people in South Carolina and the families in South Carolina. I know you've got a lot of instructors and national leaders coming in to talk about fire safety, so we're excited for your week, and we appreciate everything you do for South Carolina and making us proud. Now, I want to turn the attention over to someone who has become a dear friend. Chief Shane Ray, as you know, is leaving South Carolina, and I want you to know that he has been not only a leader in incidents where we've needed help, like the Georgetown fire or the winter storms, but he's really been a true statesman and leader when it comes to blending the business leaders together with our firefighters and making sure that everybody understands both sides of the fence and we all understand it's for the betterment of South Carolina. He has made my job incredibly easy, and I am incredibly sad to see him go. But it is with that I am thrilled that Director Holly Pizarnik is there today. And Chief, we want to present you with the state's highest civilian honor, the Order of the Palmetto, and thank you for your recognition and your service to the state of South Carolina. Don't be a stranger, come back and visit, and know that we will always consider you a very dear friend. God bless. See you soon.
The governor sent along, in addition to the video, a letter that I want to read to you now that's to Shane. It says, "Dear Chief Ray, on behalf of the people of South Carolina, I'm pleased to award to you the Order of the Palmetto. This award is in recognition of your lifelong service to the people of South Carolina. It would be easy to point to specific accomplishments that merit the Order of the Palmetto, but your entire life and career have been marked by a strong level of commitment. As State Fire Marshal and Deputy Director of the Division of Fire and Life Safety with the South Carolina Department of Labor Licensing and Regulation, you have demonstrated your commitment to the safety of our communities as well as the members of our fire service teams. In the world of making a positive difference, you have been an incredibly effective leader to those around you, and your contributions will have a lasting impact on your state for years to come. South Carolina is blessed to benefit from your generous public service and dedication to others. Thank you for upholding the highest ideals of servant leadership in everything you do. God bless. My very best, Nikki Haley. And Shane, on a personal note, I want to say to you, and I've said it to the fire service before, and I'll say it any opportunity I have to get in front of you, I have never met a group of people like the fire service that genuinely care about their fellow man like you all do. And it's not for the glory and it's not for the pay, but it's because you truly care. And Shane truly cares about his fellow man, and he truly cares about doing the right thing. Shane, you have challenged me. You have challenged the system. I have grown as a leader because I've worked with you, and our system is better. And you can leave South Carolina and know that you've left it in a better place. We were just talking last night with the team about how we've grown as a team. I feel like we've kind of grown up together. We've been together the last 2 years. And Shane, on behalf of our entire team, we are going to greatly miss you. Thank you.
Now, I have to be honest, Shane doesn't know about all this stuff. he just thinks he's getting the award that's listed in the program. But next, I'd like for you to turn your attention once again to the screen for the introduction for our next presentation to Shane.
Good morning. I'm Representative Eddie Talon from Spartanburg, South Carolina, and I'm here this morning for a very honorable presentation. I'm sorry that I could not be here in person to make this presentation. However, today we are going to honor a very distinguished individual who has done great works for the state of South Carolina. This individual came to us from Tennessee, and unfortunately, he's going to be leaving us to go back to Tennessee. Chief Shane Ray is highly regarded as a fire professional in South Carolina. When the South Carolina House of Representatives learned that Chief Ray was going to be leaving South Carolina as its fire marshal, we were very, very distressed. Everyone in the General Assembly knows the kind of work that he's done. Governor Haley made a very wise appointment when she made an appointment for him as the fire marshal in South Carolina. I'd like to read to you the House resolution passed by the South Carolina House of Representatives honoring Chief Ray. And this is to recognize and honor Chief Shane Ray, South Carolina State Fire Marshal, for his exemplary service and distinguished career as a firefighter, and to wish him continued success and happiness in all his future endeavors. Whereas the members of the South Carolina House of Representatives are pleased to pause in their deliberations to express their deep gratitude to Shane Ray for his significant contributions to fire safety in the Palmetto State. And whereas he earned a bachelor's degree from Eastern Kentucky University and completed Harvard's John F. Kennedy School of Government for state and local elected officials, the University of Maryland's Leadership Development Program, and the National Fire Academy's Executive Fire Officer Program. And whereas beginning his career in fire safety in 1984, Chief Ray worked his way through the ranks of a volunteer and career organizations from firefighter to fire chief. And whereas in 1988, he was elected mayor of Pleasant View, Tennessee, and he served as mayor for 6 years. And whereas in 2005, Chief Ray was named Fire Chief Magazine's Volunteer Fire Chief of the Year, one of the youngest fire chiefs to capture this honor. In 2006, he was honored by his alma mater with the Distinguished Alumnus Award of the Year. And in 2011, he was selected as Tennessee's Fire Chief of the Year. And whereas he served as Fire Chief of Pleasant View Volunteer Fire Department in Tennessee for 13 years before being named to head the South Carolina Fire Academy as its superintendent in 2011, and whereas 1 year later, Governor Nikki Haley appointed Chief Ray to lead the firefighters of the Palmetto State, in South Carolina as the South Carolina Fire Marshal. And whereas he currently serves as the volunteer battalion chief of the Clarendon County Fire and Rescue and as the International Director of Volunteer and Combination Officers section of the International Association of Fire Chiefs. And whereas the South Carolina House of Representatives appreciate the outstanding leadership that State Fire Marshal Shane Ray has provided fire safety in the Palmetto State and his devotion to training our state's firefighters so they can safely and sacrificially protect the citizens they serve. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the House of Representatives that the members of the South Carolina House of Representatives by this resolution recognize and honor Chief Shane Ray, South Carolina State Fire Marshal, for his exemplary service and distinguished career as a firefighter, and wish him continued success with happiness in all of his future endeavors. Congratulations, Chief Ray. Chief, I am truly sorry that I am not here to present this to you personally, but on behalf of the entire House of Representatives and the citizens of the state of South Carolina, we wish you well in all of your future endeavors. Thank you so much for your service.
We got one more. One more. Shane, you truly are part of our family. For me, his clothes have been washed at my house, so he's really part of my family. Thank you, Mary Jo. And we want you to know that although you'll be leaving South Carolina, you'll always be part of our family. And with that, it's my honor as president of the South Carolina State Firefighters Association to award you with lifetime membership to the South Carolina State Firefighters Association. We love you. We'll miss you. I know you won't be a stranger.
Well, it's as the old song would say, it's hard to be humble when they give you all that stuff. But I want to just say thank you. What an honor it is to serve you for the past 3 years. And I say that as our vision at the Division of Fire and Life Safety was a safer South Carolina, and you all have worked tirelessly to do that. To the governor and to the director who have given me all the trust to serve and do the great things that you all have done. For me to just help coordinate that has been fabulous. To the Division of Fire and Life Safety team, the Fire Academy team, and it started with Russ Fryer. When I got here, Russ said, Shane, he said, we got this under control. He said, you just go be the face of us. I said, have you seen this? So they give me this nice uniform, and I set out across the state visiting with all of you all. And to Clarendon County Fire Rescue, who give me a home to be a volunteer. I've been a volunteer since 1984, and to Clarendon Fire Rescue and Chief Richburg and the entire team there, I can't say thank you enough. I know I was a fair weather firefighter. They're like, I think he only went on a dozen or two calls, but that's because we didn't have any calls. I wasn't known as Mr. Prevention for nothing. I could go spend 48-hour tour in Clarendon County, and on Monday they'd say, what'd you do this weekend? I said, I saved 37,000 people because we didn't turn a wheel. So to the family down there, thank you. To the Jones family who took me in when I first came here and helped me so much as I made a transition. It's all been a blessing, but the team at LLR that Jonathan shared with you has made a difference in state government. But most importantly, I couldn't do any of this without you. As I had a devotional yesterday that said, you know what? You're only successful because people want you to be. And that's what you wanted me to do since being here. And that's only the thing that I can give to you is to say thank you for that. But two, to thank the Lord for giving me the ability and the opportunity to serve as I have. In today's devotional, I'll close with this. Today's devotional from John Maxwell's Leadership devotional says how to add value to others how do you add value to others? And that's what I hope and pray that I'll keep doing. Putting others first in your thinking. Sometimes our actions may not reveal that, and you have to bring us back. That's the humility. Finding out what others need and meeting that need with excellence and generosity. I feel I've worked hard to do some of that, and I pray that the people we find that come in and take this over will continue that, and that they'll continue to reach out to you, and that you'll make them as successful as you've helped me, and that they'll continue the good things and fix the things we've messed up. I can't thank you enough. God bless you, and I'll see you around. Thank you.
Next up, we have a treat. Chief Alan Brunacini is famous for his unplugged and kitchen table kind of events. But this year, I thought it would be kind of neat to have a generations conversation. And so I would ask Miss Vicki Pritchett to come out now. She's going to moderate this. And I'm actually part of the conversation, but I'm going to step out for just a few minutes and take care of escorting some people around for a few minutes. But I'll be back and join the conversation a little bit later. So, Miss Vicki, thank you for agreeing to do this.
Well, thank you, Chief. That means you're going to be tardy at the kitchen table. We'll let your mom handle that part. Right, Mary Jo? I bet you know how to do that. Well, it is indeed an honor to be here, and this year's theme so captures so well the essence of who you are. And I get to see that every time I'm here with you, and I get to have conversations and meet with you and see the good work that you're doing. And one of the things that I said to Director Palmer and Deputy Director Pope last night was that South Carolina is involved at so many levels, whether it's at the local level and you're doing neighborhood smoke alarm blitzes, or whether it's at the state level as you have one of the largest state association meetings in the country, or at the national level. If it's the National Fallen Firefighters Foundation and it's the Tampa 2 Summit, who's in the house involved, engaged, and a part of that process? South Carolina. So you understand the whole generation thing in a way that very few states do. So I applaud you this morning, and I think that our kitchen table discussion on generations is going to highlight exactly the value of that, what it has meant to the South Carolina Fire Service, what it means today, what it means for the future. You know the old saying that there's 2 really good times to plant a tree, 20 years ago or right now. So I want you to think about that. And as the folks that are going to sit at the table make their way to the table, let's think about some of the things that we know about generations and family and what that means. Families here in South Carolina includes generations of service. This year, the 109th annual conference is historical in the fact that with Chief Jones serving as president, he made history. His dad served as president. So what a testimony, what a legacy that is for the Jones family. And I know for Mary Louise and Cooper, Denise and Mary Jo, that means something to know that your grandpa and your daddy gave that much of their service to South Carolina, to keeping people safe at home. And I think that is what we're here to honor today. So man, did I get a good lineup or what? And your son is tardy. What does that say for us, Carter? Okay, y'all make yourself comfortable. We've got water there for you. We are all family. You are family. You show it, you share it each and every day. And you make a difference because of sharing those servant hearts. Now, the one thing that I also know about kitchen tables and firehouse, there's a lot of stories that get told at those tables, right? A lot. Are some true, some half true, some maybe just full-blown fishtails? I've heard about those too. But let's see who's at the kitchen table. And I'd like to start just by asking each of you to tell us who you are and a little bit about the generational aspect of what brings you to this table. And you're just going to have to talk about your son that's not here, Carter.
Okay. I'm Carter Jones, and I've lived in Manning all of my life until I went off to college and worked in Columbia a while. And I've been truly blessed, as all of you know. As long as I ever had memory, I wanted to be a firefighter. And, you know, Chief Brunacini talks about when did you get on the bus. We never had a bus in Manning. My mode of travel was a bicycle. And, but that's where my interest started as a young child, and that's all I ever wanted to do. And I'm living a dream. And it's such a pleasure to have two boys who have grown up in the fire service. Dear wife, Mary Jo, who was our first female firefighter in Clarendon County. And so it is a generational thing, and I'm looking forward to Cooper and Mary Louise possibly being involved.
Very good. What year did you serve as president of the association?
1980.
1980. How does it make you feel to see Jonathan here opening the 109th annual? I'm sure that's a question that maybe everyone would like to know.
Very, very proud, and it lets Mary Jo and myself know that maybe we did something right.
That's great. That's great. Chief Brunacini.
My name is Alan Brunacini. I joined the Phoenix Fire Department in 1958, and I got to spend 48 years there. So I was truly a guy that landed in the right place at the right time. Phoenix was, during that period of time, the fastest growing city probably any place on the planet. When I joined, we had 9 fire stations, and when I retired here 6-7 years ago, we had 70 fire stations. So that occurred in one lifetime. So I've had, and like Carter, I have 2 sons and a daughter who were Phoenix firefighters. And it's a little bit frightening, but all 3 of them are retired. So that describes my stage of my life in the process. My 2 sons have a training business, and I became interested fairly early in my career, probably like many of us in this room, in fire operations. And it was during a period of time when they were developing incident command on the West Coast, kind of in the formal sense that we see it today. So I kind of eavesdropped on that, took it back to Phoenix, and I have been kind of involved in that in the last 50 years. So that's one of the conversations that we have had here in this great program in the process. But now what I do is I just trudge around and hang out with you all, and it's great, and with my sons. So it's been an interesting life, and it's been certainly a fun one. It still is, and I'm still fascinated by the fire service. I think like all of us are, and that today particularly there's a lot of stuff going on, and I think they're presenting a lot of it here, and that's really an interesting part to connect to. So it's nice to be here, and thank you for inviting me.
Well, thanks for being here, Chief. And I think I would just add that it even goes to your grandchildren. And yesterday you had a session with Alana, who's here with us this week as well. And even though she's not in the fire service per se, she can't help but be involved in the fire service and be able to share valuable advice. The session that you had yesterday, I thought it was great for those who were in there to be able to talk about behavioral health, how it impacts the firehouse and the firefighters and the fire service as a whole. So another example of it does go from generation to generation to generation. And I think the one thing that anyone involved with a fire service family realizes, and Alana certainly articulated that very well yesterday, is the respect for what you do. Like she said, I don't ever intend to go into the burning building, but she understands the characters that do.
I suspect that she's now out studying abnormal South Carolina behavior somewhere. So.
My name is Kerry Tanner. I'm with Johnsonville Fire District. Started fire service back in 1964 because I wanted to get married in 1963. Well, my wife-to-be was the daughter of a fire chief at that time. He was the fire chief at Johnsonville. And the first question, not about when I asked him for my wife's hand, he said, "I want you to join the fire department." That was going to be prerequisite to marrying his daughter. But the second part was he was deputy sheriff and he wore a gun, so I joined the fire department. And from that on, when I got in the fire service, I fell in love with the fire service because I saw just an open-ended career ahead of you if you just put yourself into it. We were all volunteers. We had 9 people in one truck. Today, we're running 3 stations with 14 pieces of apparatus and 37 people. But to get to where we are today, it took a lot of work, headaches, and a lot of joy. And one thing in my career I found, if I worked in the career fire department at one time, then I had a stint with the state fire marshal's office, a trained specialist, and then with the fire academy. Ended up there retired and then going back home again. And during that time, somehow or another, I wound up with 2 young boys, different ages, sitting to my left here. And they did not have a choice of being in fire service because I drugged them around all over the PD while I was teaching as an adjunct instructor for the fire academy. And they learned a lot and they taught me a lot trying to take care of them. Well, I'm very proud to say that I've also got a grandson now that's following in their footsteps. So it's been very rewarding to me. And I find the fire service is very, it's very rewarding. It gives more than you put into it, if you'll just allow it to be. And I can expand on that a little bit later, but I'm really proud of my family, how they turned out. I owe it all to my wife, who has been a dedicated person. She's lived with a walkie-talkie or a pager all of our 52 years, and that says something that she still stayed with me. And she's still sane also. You know, she got a right mind. So the main thing I'm saying, I'm very proud of her.
That's great.
I'm Joey Tanner. I'm the fire chief for the city of Georgetown, and like Dad said, we didn't have a choice. I guess we did have a choice. My granddad being a deputy sheriff, we could have been law enforcement or fire, but I figured I couldn't dodge a bullet. So I think it was easier to get out of a burning building than it was dodging a bullet. But I've been in Georgetown now for 30 years. I've been in the fire service for like 35, 36 years legally. And I say legally because 16 years of age. So, but I actually started going to fires when, like he said, I followed him right around in the car and started pulling hose on the outside and doing those kind of things. But it is something that we really enjoy doing, and it is a commitment. I think everybody has a calling in their life, and I really think fire service is a calling that you all share. And I really, like everybody else has said, I can't think of doing anything else in the world. The only 2 things I know how to do is fight fire and run my mouth. You know, anything else, I had to get somebody else to do it. Hush. And Carter said he was president in 1980. I was still in high school in 1980, just so you know, Carter. So we can go in there. So, but it's been a great time watching my little brother come up through here as well, too. So we kind of watch him trying to be as good as his dad and trying to do those things all the time. And so I think, again, as a family, I think we've enjoyed a great time of doing that.
My name is Shannon Tanner. I'm Deputy Chief of Operations in the City of Florence Fire Department, but I'm also a member of the Johnsonville Fire District as well. I still live there. I don't have an early memory of being in the fire department other than the fact that I know that when I came home from the hospital, they stopped me by there on the way home from a first day because my granddad and my grandma was up at the fire department. So I was there as an infant. But I kind of just grew up in it, as Dad said. I don't know anything but the fire service. That's all I've ever wanted to be. And the more I got involved in it, the more I wanted to learn about it, the more I wanted to do it. It took me a while to get on in a paid career department. I tried a few times, it didn't work out, and I really wasn't interested in leaving home that far. So Florence was accepting applications, and I put one here at the beach at the same time, and Florence called me first, and that was in '97. And so I've been there ever since, and I moved up the ranks there. But you know, really enjoyed it, enjoyed being an instructor, enjoy the table conversations that we have all the time. Matter of fact, when we get to Dad's house and sit around and talk, that's all we talk about. And you know, our wives always say, "Can you talk about anything different?" Well, it's just our lives. That's what we do. And so, you know, it's very interesting. It's a lot of fun. We have a lot of fun with each other, and that's just about it till we get started further into the conversation.
Well, that was the perfect setup, Shannon, and thank you for that. Paul Coombs and Mike Gagliano are doing a program at the conference this week about defining your passions and finding your voice. When you think about that, where in the fire service did you find your passion and voice? And we'll just let you all figure out who wants to jump in first, because that's the way the kitchen table works, right? They're deferring to the elder, Carter, past you.
That ought to be the chief over here. When and how did I define my passion? And I would have to say that defining my passion was a process. And initially it started out as a fascination with the fire service or a significant interest. But I would have to say that the process of defining my passion involved some great people in my mind who nurtured my interest, my enthusiasm, and refined it to the point that it truly became a passion. And they also helped define my voice. As a young guy just out of college, I joined the fire department in 1966. I had to pay my way to the annual conferences each year. The fire department never participated. And I made it my business to look around the lobbies and the meeting rooms to identify the movers and shakers. I liked what I saw. South Carolina had so much potential, but not much was going on. And after several years of attending the conference at the old Ocean Forest Hotel on the north end, a few of those folks who were movers and shakers took notice of me and brought me under their wing. One great guy, some of you knew and you know now because of the auditorium at the academy is named for him, Chief Charlie Denny. And he appointed me on my first committee, which was a fire school committee. I was in my early 20s. So observing their leadership roles, their lives were actually a manual of instruction for leadership. And they, through their leadership and my observing them and see how they conducted themselves, their character, their drive, that influenced and helped define my passion. Now, it took many years for me to find my voice. And I guess I would have to say that following some of these folks and being involved in what they did and how they involved me helped me to develop some sort of leadership style. And I would have to say that I have several voices. And one is I love to connect with people as they did. And I wanted to emulate that. So that was very beneficial when I started the Clarendon County Fire Department. Connecting to people, convincing them they needed to be involved. So that was one aspect of that voice that came out. And there were other voices, of course, but I owe a great deal to those folks who took me under their wings. And you know, even today and yesterday, as I sat in Chief Brunacini's class and some of the others, you don't have to be an old person to mentor another. I'm mentored by these guys. I won't tell them very often, but I do. My sons. I'm grateful to my wife. She is a mentor. She brings me back down to earth. So anyway, that's how I defined my passion, and they helped me find some voices.
And what's so neat about that is to realize that South Carolina and Clarendon County is a safer place because you made the decision to follow that passion and that voice. So just just to make that note, it's awesome to see that in action, because what you just described. And then my other thought on that, as I was imagining, and you have a great ability to bring it to life, almost like a storybook, but the association, the South Carolina Firefighters Association, has played that role for so many great fire service leaders in this state. And I think we see that at the table. We see that this entire week, as whether you're an instructor or whether we're in the hallway networking and learning from one another. But you're right, we're talking about passion and finding your voice. And Chief Jones, I know that you were instrumental in bringing both Paul and Mike to the conference, and there were probably some folks who were like, he's gonna do what? Our theme is going to include this, why? Do you want to elaborate on that? And especially the part about the passion and the voice, and you can go ahead and tell us what got you on the bus too.
Yeah, you know, I had a conversation with one of our Leadership Institute participants last year, and she was struggling with, where is my niche in the fire service? How do I, you know, Mike Galliano has air management. Chief Rick Lasky has pride and ownership. How do I find my niche? And I told her, I said, you know, don't worry about finding your niche. Figure out what you're passionate about. Do kind of an inventory of your talents. Figure out how you marry those two together. Whenever you find the thing where your passion and your talents, which may be your voice, collide, that is just a magical thing. I don't know if you've ever seen that in someone's career, when their passions and their voice, or their passions and their talents, what they're good at, just literally collide. It's magical. And you know, for me, and the theme of the conference really came to me. I was on a plane on the way back from Haiti in 2010, and I was on my way back from a medical mission trip, and I had already announced at the June conference in 2009 that I was going to run for 4th Vice President. And you know, I talked with Chief Joey Tanner. You had kind of given up a position with the Southeastern Chiefs because you wanted to concentrate on things that really mattered in life. And I was struggling with that. I'd already announced to you guys that I wanted to run. I came back from Haiti, and I called Chief Klein. I said, I'm not sure I want to do this. You know, I'm not sure that I want to make the sacrifices with my family and all that kind of time that it's going to take for me to go through the chairs in the Firefighters Association. And he told me kind of the same thing. He said, you know what? If you're passionate about your family, figure out a way to marry the two. Wow. So I ended up reading this book by Andy Stanley, and I shared this in the class we did yesterday. I read this book by Andy Stanley called When Family and Work Collide. And what I figured out, and I've shared with our folks here in Clarendon County, is there are some things that other people can do. You don't have to do it all. You know, there are some things that other people can do, but there are some things that no one else can do. And those are the things that you have to make important. You know, I'm the only one that when my wife is having a bad day, needs to be there holding her hand. When my daughter or my son's in the doctor's office, I'm the only one that can hold their hand and make things better. But there are other people that can hold the fire hose, and there are people you can delegate things to. And I think what I found was that the things I was passionate about, as I started talking to other people, again, listening to Chief Tanner tell me what his decision was, is, you know, other people are feeling the same way. So why does it have to be one or the other? Why can't we take our passions for life, our passions for family, our passions for other things, and marry them to our passions for the fire service? I think it makes us a better chief. I think it makes us a more well-rounded individual when we can take our passions and for everything. It shouldn't have to be one or the other, because I'm one that believes that God's callings don't conflict. So if God's called me to be a firefighter, if God's called me to be in the fire service a leader, and God's also called me to be a husband and a father, he makes that work out.
Fair enough. And I think that summary helps us understand the theme, the different aspects, and how it all is part. It's almost like working a jigsaw puzzle, and you have to have all the pieces to see that big picture. And I think it's definitely we know that healthy firefighters deliver better service to the community because they are on point and ready to answer the call in the healthiest way possible, and we understand those variances. From a standpoint of, at the other end of the table, or Chief Brunacini jump in here, in that context, bringing that passion and that voice. Do you have voices speaking to you, Chief? This is
Well,
going to be good.
I used to be passionate, now I'm patient.
Yeah, you know, I think the passion that I had is kind of evolved over time. You know, there's always that passion to be the best firefighter you can be, and I think I'll never lose that. You know, always wanting to be better, always wanting to try harder. I mean, even when we were young, you know, I can remember being around the station when we had this little junior fireman program. We were always racing, putting on air packs. We were always racing on putting on turnout gear. You know, betting a mellow yellow. You know, just whoever could do it the fastest. You know, and that passion was there. And then it kind of evolved into wanting to become an instructor. You know, Daddy, Joy both were instructors, and I wanted to be one. Probably not for the right reason. I wanted to do it because that would allow me to go to more burns. You know, I wanted to be involved more. The more I could fight fire, the more I could get in, the better it was. And then, you know, I really found a true passion in teaching. I really like that, and that's kind of evolved over time. And, you know, I've been teaching for quite some time, and I see the passion kind of changes in that as well, how you want to teach. You want to teach, you know, to start with, I just wanted to teach people how to try to be a better firefighter. Then I wanted to try to teach people how to be a better person and a firefighter. And then it evolves over time that now I got a more new passion, because now when I get to travel around, you know, I'm thinking about my son, you know, going to another department somewhere to try to be a firefighter, and I want to teach that guy that's going to be teaching him, you know, and you know, that's where a passion is, to make sure that that guy knows everything he can to take care of him.
My passion has always been one thing, and that is to make a difference. And I feel like anything that we do, we have to make a difference. And as Jonathan, that was a great conversation you and I had that day, but and the whole purpose of stepping away from the Southeastern, and my words to everybody was this: I'm going back to Georgetown to be the very best fire chief they got. And I'm gonna do the very best I can for our community, and that means make a difference better there and focus that effort there. But I also feel like that when you make a difference for people, you make a difference for yourself. And that passion kind of rolls through. When you make a difference, you want to make people around you better. And you focus on your faith. And that was kind of my thing. What am I doing here that makes a significant difference in eternity? And I was saying, you know, I can do that as an outreach to my community. And that's kind of the way that I see that now. That's what I do. And I believe that when we focus on the people that we serve, because let's face it, all of us are servants. We wouldn't be doing this if we were not servants, because we would not put up with what we have to put up with to be servants, if we weren't servants. And we all know you're not going to get wealthy doing this, but our wealth is internal. And it's the way you feel in the passion in your heart of what you do there. And I think that when I focused on that, the rewards just can continue to come. And that passion to make a difference and to teach those around us. And as he said, we've all been instructors, and that truly is a passion as well too, is to be there and to teach this individual something that he never, and it is amazing to watch that face light up when they finally get it. And then to be able to see them take it and put it to work somewhere on the fire ground or in a leadership role and those things. And when you see that happening, to me, it's just like, okay, we made that difference there for that individual. And then to be able to come to a conference here and people come back and say, I was in your class this time, and we have to admit there's so many of them coming through here, and I'm 51 now, so now I can simply say, tell me your name again, because I truly have forgotten some of the names, but I know the faces. But again, to make a difference for people, I think is the passion that drives me to do what I do.
He just said he's 51, so you know, me and my wife, we got married before we were teens. I came from a farming background, and it's not the farming you know today. When we were farming, we did it with a mule and plow, walking every day. And I vowed I was going to get out of that, but I didn't know it at the time. But when I was plowing a mule and following that mule, the good Lord taught me a tremendous lesson from the mule. Not that I'm mule-headed. My wife says I'm mule-headed, but I was taught a good lesson by a mule. A mule is an offspring of a horse and a donkey. You got two traits there. Inside that mule, he has the ability to follow the high-spirited horse or determination of a donkey. And what my job has been and where I find my passion, when I joined the fire service, there was no such thing in my department as a training officer. So I asked to become a training officer. Well, how are you going to do that? I said, I'm going to study and find out. So I started on self-study, as it were. And we got to the point we had a training officer, and we started developing. Over the years, it grew from that. Like I said, in my past history, I already told you about that. But I was asked one time, not too many years ago, said, as a volunteer fire chief, what do you do? You're not like a big paid city career fire. You're a volunteer. What do you do? I said, well, going back to my farming background, I told them I grow men and women. That's my job. In religious realm, there's a verse that says, many are called, but few are chosen. My job as a fire chief is to look at all those applications that I have and look at the people that are coming through my door, find that little seed that's been planted early that nobody knows about, take that seed and develop it. And before I put him on a turnout gear and a helmet and a breathing apparatus, I put on his armor. It's got to be, first of all, it's got to be honesty. It's got to be integrity. It's got to be dedication. It's got to be determination. When I get those things embedded into an individual and I see him starting to develop, the migration is coming like from a little cocoon to a butterfly. That's why I equate it with. And when he puts on the turnout gear and he goes into his first fire that I know that he's capable of doing because he's been trained not only by me but professional people, then I can look at the butterfly and I say, thank God for another one. So my voice has been in the fire service for the volunteer. I will always be a volunteer. I have the volunteer heart. I was raised as a volunteer, and I will die a volunteer. The recognition of a volunteer, I have opinions about that, and I'm very vocal about that. But I will tell you this, over the years that I've been in the South Carolina Firefighters Association, since 1964, I've seen a tremendous amount of difference going throughout the entire year. And today, I'll say today, we're standing on another plateau. We're in a very process. Right now, with Shane Ray leaving, there's so much uncertainty right now. The fire academy and all those are kind of going to be vacant. But we're on a plateau right now. We need the fire service, such as you. Look here, I'm not the voice of fire service. I'm just a little volunteer out here. But we need you. These people that will make these decisions need your input. You know what you need more than anybody in Columbia knows. Or anyone, they'll tell you right now, they don't know the answer. But you have the answer. You have been taught integrity, determination, honesty, all those things. Exercise it. That's where my passion comes from, is when people exercise their right to tell somebody, this is what we want. This will make us better.
And before we leave this topic, Chief Brunacini, I think a thought that just occurred, and Chief Tanner, that was an eloquent statement of capturing that essence of that voice and who you represent. Chief Brunacini, you're well known across the nation, and I think we've all felt very fortunate to learn from you. You recognized an individual within the fire service, and her name was Mrs. Smith, and you focused on the fact that we all need to collectively remember the citizen in everything we do. How do you, in your words, plug that into this generational speech that has just occurred at this table? But who represents Mrs. Smith? What's your take?
One day I figured out that buildings didn't vote. And up until then, what my focus was on were buildings that were on fire, and that's what I was trained to do. And clearly, a lot of our activity engages buildings that are burning, so I don't mean any way to make that any less important, but buildings don't vote. And when I read her whole letter, and that was an interesting day in my life, because I was trained to read the first two things in it, that we were fast and we were effective. But when I read the rest of her letter, which is about 2 pages, it was the description of the memory of the way we treated her. Well, honestly, I didn't have the experience, the skill, the personality, the background to read that, because what she used was emotional language. I was trained to not be emotional. In other words, do not emotionalize a fire. It will affect your ability to deploy and all these other things. And clearly, we do not want an incident commander to be emotional. We want him to deal with it in a very standard kind of way. But that's not the experience that Mrs. Smith has. In other words, she never wrote me a letter and remarked on the nozzles that we pulled up on her front porch. I couldn't believe those constant flow nozzles. And I got, literally, because I was in a busy place, in a big place that had a lot of activity, I read thousands of those letters from Mrs. Smith. And honestly, my wife, everyone here has talked about their significant other. I thought my wife described me in pretty brief terms. She said, "You're emotionally illiterate." Kind of charitable on her part. So it was interesting for us to pick out the word that she uses, and she uses it all the time, and she uses it a lot, is simply she remembered how nice we were to her. Well, we began to market nice in the system. Now, an interesting part of that is it changed the organization. 5th largest city in the country, 450 firefighters on duty every day, went on 800 calls. Is when we had the exclamation about being nice, it changed the way we managed the system, because the way we treated people on the inside got delivered to Mrs. Smith on the outside. So it was an interesting, very quiet, very subtle kind of a change, but I think a remarkable change that changed the direction of our system in the process. And we shared that. I think we all did it kind of together. We all kind of had that same revelation. And I think we changed. That was the easiest change we ever. And a lot of us lived through changes that were pretty tough to make. I mean, you come and change. We're listening to some changes here at this conference that are very, very difficult to implement. In other words, we habitually go inside a fire, and for somebody to tell us that there might be a better way to recalibrate that fire is kind of an interesting experience for us. And again, we all lived through all those changes during our whole careers. I mean, there's 60 years on the stage here. We told firefighters, be nice, and they said, okay, let's eat. And it was the easiest change we made, not because I think of any kind of management that we did, let me just say that. I think it was because their mothers taught them to be nice. And I think we were nice before we got a customer service initiative, but I think what we did is that I don't mean to say we legitimized it, but I think we supported it. It changed our language in the system. It was okay to speak emotional language. And up until then, we honestly, and I think we were pretty typical, we taught, we spoke, we did business in tactical language. And we should always do business in tactical language, because she calls us because she has some physical problem in the process. But I think what this did for us is it created almost what Jonathan said, is that we can do the tactical thing, and we can service her emotional needs and meet her emotional needs in a very seamless kind of way. And I don't think that was a huge personality change at all. I think, again, and I would salute the families of firefighters, all of them in the process, because when we hire a firefighter, we hire their mother.
Absolutely.
Yeah, no, and their mother raised them good. I mean, by and large in the process. So it was, again, I won't, it was the easiest thing we did. Let me just blurt that out, yeah.
That's great. And this next question is for all of you, but the theme of this year's conference is saving lives, changing lives through family, finance, fitness, and fire hose. The idea is that we have to find and intentionally create a balance of the things that are important to us, that keep us physically, mentally, emotionally, and some would argue spiritually healthy. Do you agree? This gets personal, but share with us ways that you found success in finding balance or creating breathing room, as Chief Jones mentioned earlier, in these areas.
Well, I think the word intentional is key. It doesn't just happen. I mean, I think you can't just, it really doesn't matter what you approach in life. You can't approach a leadership position and think that it will just happen. I think if you're a company officer, you have to be intentional in the way you deal with your crew. You have to be, because if you don't, then it just spirals. You have to be intentional about training your crew. You have to be intentional about teaching them their tools. You have to be intentional about pre-planning your actions given the circumstances you're presented with. But I think it's the same way in finding balance. If you're the chief, you have to be intentional about creating, in any leadership role, not just the chief, but I think you have to be intentional about creating sacred boundaries. You know, I kind of define it as I have a box that I live in, and there are some sacred boundaries that I just won't cross. And when an opportunity presents itself that I think may cause me to cross out of that box, the answer's hard, but no. And so I think being intentional about creating boundaries, it goes back to what I said. I mean, there are other people that can do most of the things that we do in life, but there are some things that you do in life that nobody else can do. And I think breathing room, that idea is creating space, whether it's on the fire ground, whether it's in, you know, your finances, whether it's in your cholesterol level, or whether it's in your schedule. It's the idea of creating space between your current status and your limitations, because at some point you redline the engine too long, it doesn't run anymore. And I think that's, if you redline your time with your family because you won't create intentional space for them, the family will suffer. If you redline your finances, yeah, I mean, we can raise our debt ceiling, but that only lasts for so long. You redline your cholesterol level and your blood pressure, you only last so long. You redline and take away your margin fare on the fire scene, you don't match your resources with the fire you have and the tactics you have. The margin fare is gone, and there is no room to make a mistake, because we're going to make mistakes. So I would say that the key to that whole thing is being intentional about it.
Well, I'm the absolutely wrong person to talk about balance. Thank God I had a godly wife who helped provide that balance. My focus, I'm sorry to say, was strictly on growing a fire department. And thank God my boys turned out okay.
Well, I was going to say, I think they turned out all right, Carter.
But it was more of a team effort, because Mary Jo picked up the slack. If I could roll back the hands of time, I think I would find more balance. And even today, after 48 years, I still have a struggle finding balance because I'm so focused. So, you know, I give Mary Jo the bulk of the credit.
And we did talk about having a chair up here for Mary Jo.
But I'm not a good example when it comes to balance. She realized early in our marriage that she needed to be involved because I was so focused. And we drew the boys into that and made family time with the fire department. And vacations, are you kidding me? It was always a conference or a training session or whatever, but they came along. And there was very little breathing room with finances. You know, there were times that I only had enough money to buy a gallon of milk or a loaf of bread. We lived off of one salary. And but she's the one who really encouraged that balance, and I'm grateful for her.
I think an area of improvement is in the generations. I think that sitting on the stage, and I can plug myself into it, I think that being raised by very focused parents creates a socialization on the kids that cause them to be better parents. I have 3 kids that are far better parents than I was. in the process. I saw my kids when they were born. I saw them when they were 2, and I think I saw them when they were 14. And then they came on the job, and then we hung out together. And other than that, I was working. Yeah, I was working 3 jobs. I was going to school. I got an undergraduate degree. I got a graduate degree. I was the head of the fire science program at Phoenix College. During that period of time, I probably wrote 3 or 4 books. So again, they were almost victimized by our focus in the process. And I love it now because I go to their houses and I turn all their lights on and I stand in front of the refrigerator with the door open. And they say, the old man's nuts.
I think I equate what we're talking about here, like I think all of you have seen a commercial on TV where this juggler's out there juggling chainsaws with them running. This guy said, let me have one. That's the job of a volunteer fire chief when you're having to work a day job or a shift job, be a fire chief, have a family, trying to make it ends meet. As Carter says, one income. It's quite a feat. And the only thing that sustains a person in that position, which some of you out there know exactly what I'm talking about, first of all, is a sense of dedication. You got a job you're called to do, and it's called beyond imaginations. And it's got to urge, you got to do something about it. You got to make it work. Then when it comes into the faith part, if you read that book, the book we call the Bible, it tells you about a lot of people that made a lot of bad mistakes. They were none of them hardly perfect at all. But somehow or another, through time and faith alone, all came back into being, put it back in perspective. And that's what I'm trying to say now. I think what we need to do is put our life in perspective. There's a time and a place for everything. It's hard, but it's good times. The best thing I've had to sustain me over, Carter, I've got you 1.5 years, 49.5 years in fire service. I don't think I've ever been to a fire that after the fire, after sitting even on my front porch or somewhere else, I haven't go back and refought that fire and found something in that thing that was absolutely hilarious. Somebody did. I find a lot of comfort and hilarity at looking at the fire because none of us are perfect. I've made mistakes, and I enjoy watching other people as they make mistakes, as they're not life-threatening, and I find a lot of comfort in that, and it builds me up myself. And so I kind of balance those things with humor and then faith. Without faith, I could not accomplish what I do because when I've gone to the end of my rope, it's just like a little picture you've seen also with a little cat hanging on by his claws. When you come to the end of the rope and there's nowhere else to go, you got to stake. Let's look here. There is somewhere out there a power bigger than me. And if I can glean some of that power off of my children, thank God they're outstanding in their job, and my wife, and I pull from others. I pull from Carter Jones. I pull from Alan Brunacini's books. I pull from watching Jonathan. I pull, even my age, I pull strength off of all my peers, more than I give. So that's the way I balance mine.
One of the things that when I was executive fire officer program, one of the first things we did in the class there, they said, okay, you don't know anybody in your class. I want everybody to sit there and talk about your job for 5 minutes. Just talk about it. So you get to know everybody. So we had our 5-minute time there. We got through, and then they looked at it and said, okay, for 1 minute, take your partner and talk about something other than your family and your job. And the room was very, very quiet. Very, very quiet. And they said, our job here these 2 weeks is to teach you to get outside the box of the fire service. You need to focus on somewhere else. And I'll have to say, at that time, I was not married. And I thought I'd learned it, and I remembered it, but I didn't live it when I got home. It was like, when I got home, I was in the office all the time. I would be at station 9, 10 o'clock at night, because I had nowhere else to go but home. And then I was very fortunate, and God blessed me with my wife, Gay Ann, and I realized at that point that there is something other than the fire service. And I'll be quite frank with you, if she had not come into my life, I don't know where I'd be today. I don't know if I'd have survived it, because you live it all the time, your body can't take that. And so she came into my life, and I realized there was something different, and that we could share things. But I also had someone that I could talk to, because otherwise we had this tendency to internalize everything. And then when she came into my life, she said, I want to know what's affecting you, what's going on. And now we can talk about those things, and I feel a lot better about that. But the process of where do we go from there is that we have to focus on our job. There's no doubt about that, and we do live that. And we live that 24 hours a day, whether we like to believe that or not. But we have to focus outside of that job, because if you focus on that and you turn to that every day for everything that you do, you realize after a while you have nothing else. And when you do decide to leave retirement or leave on other purposes, what do you do at that point? You have nothing. So I think that by focus on those things and looking and following your faith, because there are those things that you cannot do. As great as we think we are, as much experience as we have, and I can call my dad, I can call Jonathan, Carter, Shannon, I can call everybody, but there's some answers that nobody can give me, and I've got to be able to turn that to someone else, and that's where our faith comes in for us.
I told you he could talk a lot. Most of all that humor Dad was talking about he found on the fire grounds usually come from my expense. It seemed like I couldn't fight a fire unless I fell down 2 or 3 times before I got and made it to the door. But yeah, I guess my balance, learned early on. And like I said, our family get-togethers and stuff, being in that volunteer department, we had family get-togethers at the volunteer fire department. I grew up with some kids now that are firefighters elsewhere or made it police chiefs or whatever. We all played around the station together. We grew up together that way. And also being able to travel a lot with Daddy, going to these classes and stuff, that was my balance, because that was things that we had in common. There's a lot of kids, I think, that don't have a lot in common with their parents, and that creates some separation. But with us, it wasn't that way. It was just, that was normal, and we had all this stuff to talk about all the time, and that just brought us more together. As my career advanced on a little bit, then I had an opportunity, like I said, to go to work in Florence, and now being the deputy chief there, there's a lot of stressors coming from all angles, and you don't want to take that home with you. And I have about a 30-minute ride to work back and forth every day, which to me is my time to really wind up and then to wind back down before I get to my family. And that helps out a lot, because there are some problems that this technology now, this right here, you never leave it. And, so there's always issues going on, and sometimes you want to say, I don't want to read this email because I know that's going to ruin what's fixing to happen. But, there is a balance, and it has to work, but you have to make a concerted effort to make it to be that way, because you can get consumed. I can find myself getting consumed, and sometimes my wife will tell me, hey, leave that alone. I say, well, I just got to see what it says. You leave that alone right now. Let's just go off somewhere and don't worry about that and have a disconnect. I've had the opportunity to go on a couple little short cruises, and to me that was the best vacation I've ever been on, because I lose contact with everybody. And it's not that I don't want to talk to anybody, but there's no way they can get to me and I can't get to them, because you always, with that passion inside, you always want to find out what's going on. When I was on shift as a captain on an engine, I would go on vacation, but I would sneak off and call the station and say, hey, guys, what you doing? What you running? You catch anything? I just want to know. I don't want to miss it. And, and now I really want to miss some of the stuff, but I can't. And that's the issues that we're facing now.
Well, I think we would all agree that this family kitchen table exemplifies servant leadership, servant hearts in action. Essentially, you captured the essence of this week's theme for the 109th Annual South Carolina Fire Rescue Conference. As we close out, and we're going to stay on track, and so closing thoughts, what would you say to those in the audience as they're thinking and looking for things to take back to the fire department? How do you include the family? And certainly there's lots of different strategies on this, but how would you use your knowledge to encourage folks here to go home and recruit more by including families?
My thing real quick would just be, the fire department and the fire service is a family atmosphere. When you on shift, all your people, they know each other's family. Keep that up. you know, in your stations, make it where you can have family times and bring people there. I know that there's things you have to be careful of and all the legalities and everything, but make time, make areas where they can get together and do things. Make that available. That's the only way it's going to last. In the volunteer service, you know, keep up the family nights, keep up the family days, make programs where your people can get together. Keep the junior fireman program up, because that's what's going to be the future. If you lose that, then we lose it all. Just keep it close. We have a tendency to want to be close anyway, but just make it available. Us as chiefs have to make that available. Tell the guys it's okay. You know, you don't, yeah, this is the book, but do it. You know, take care of each other.
I think I would say that, remember what Chief Brunacini said, Mrs. Smith's always out there. And Mrs. Smith may stop by the fire station. And don't have anything going on in your fire station that you'll be ashamed of to see on the newspaper, or your mom to walk in the door, or your daughter to walk in the door and see that. And the words that you say and the things that you do, when Miss Smith walks through that door, I don't want that phone call to me and say, Chief, do you know what I heard at your fire station? Because you will. And you have to do that. And kind of like what we've all said here, we have to be the leaders, and we have to set that example first by ourselves, but also encourage our employees and say, we're not going to have this happen in our building. We're not going to have it on our fire scenes. And then making sure that our families understand. And I think that's the big thing, is having our families understand exactly what's going on, why we come home, and we're just dead tired when we get home, and also understand how we're reacting to these incidents that we come back from, because they don't understand that. And they think they've done something wrong, and they haven't. And they need to understand that.
With that said, I've got one little pet peeve that I think that I'll have an opinion on right now that Chief Brunacini said a moment ago. One of the assets he had from his kids being 1, 2, and 14 and then coming to work with him. South Carolina, we have our children can come up in the fire service as a volunteer. And we can keep him around our feet, and we can teach him as a cadet or a junior fireman, and we can put him on the fire department himself. But if he wants to become a career fire department where his dad or uncle or somebody else is already a fire chief, he can't go there. Nepotism, a word called nepotism. But there's a way that nepotism could be addressed without, I'm afraid that South Carolina has lost a lot of super family-oriented firefighters by not being able to put family together. This is a family job. There's no other job that requires so much of a family, understanding, dedication, perseverance, than fire service. Nothing else. I just want to see, I would love to see where that Shannon's kid could join with him in Florence. I would love to see Joey with his relation join him. I'd love to see those paid chiefs have contact all the way through their life. At one time, we've got to put them out. It's not right, but there again, I'm simply saying this, I'm saying all of this, like I said before, if all of you would take into consideration that a lot of people come through your doors that are called to be firefighters, but only a few of them are going to be chosen. You have to make that determination. But when you make the determination he's going to be one of my firefighters, you make him put on that armor first of integrity, dedication, perseverance, all those things, then put him on a firefighting after you've taught him the right way, and be sure he knows how to do it.
I just had one thing, Vicki, before I turn it over to Chief. I think we have a lot of weaknesses and certainly much room for improvement with recruitment and retention. But I suspect, and may I take an informal poll, how many of you out here have some generational contacts, grandfather, father, uncle, brother, son? Would you stand up in the fire service? Giddy up. All right. So it is alive and well, and we have to nurture it. So, Chief?
I think there's two dimensions. Let me kind of go off in a little bit different direction. Is when we talk about deliverance service, we have business practices and we have family practices. And if you look at that from the standpoint of the customer, they don't understand, they don't care about, they put very little value in business practices. When you get feedback from Mrs. Smith, what she'll say, and she lives in the middle of Phoenix, Arizona, that has 1.5 million people in it, and she says, I got treated like I came from the little town in Nebraska. That's what she remembers. And in that process, what occurs is there is an emotional exchange between those firefighters and that family. And that's what they remember in the process. So it's interesting for us, and clearly we need to engage in business practices that are standard, and we need to account for what we do and so on. I think that we're very skillful in doing that. But I think if we don't somehow create a process in our system where we engage and we deliver the service to that customer in that way, that personal way, that emotional way, that we speak the language that that customer is going through, we miss an incredible opportunity in the process. But that is simply, those are family practices. And I came from a very well-managed, analytic kind of system, and we drove them absolutely crazy. On the side of our trucks, we put our family helping your family. One day we were having a problem, and we said we ought to change that sign to our dysfunctional family helping your dysfunctional family. But whatever the functionality is, it's one family delivering service to another family, and I think that really ought to be for us as bosses, and there's a lot of bosses on the stage here. Magnetic north to us ought to be, and if you talk about servant leadership, it should be delivering service to Mrs. Smith. It's not the ego-driven kinds of things that can be pretty seductive to the people sitting on this stage. And those are all very nice. We ought to feel good about that, and that's part of the job that we have. But necessarily, we are not here to aggrandize the status that we have. We're here to protect the customer, and that's what we do. And I think that's why the service is so positive in the process. So,
yeah, something Chief Brunacini said back in January, we were sitting around another kitchen table, is your family survived because you got your kids on the bus. You brought them along, and I think that's evident here. Is Chief Tanner, you got your kids on the bus with you. We were having a great conversation. I mean, obviously, I have a brother that was in the fire service too, and just comparing notes of what it was like to fight fire with your brother. And we all had our little rituals together, and our dads had their way of directing us differently on the fire ground than they directed everybody else. Most of the time, we caught the slack for everybody else. But I think that's one of the things is we bring our kids along. I think the Tanners have some of their next generation of folks out in the audience. My family's over there, and I don't know that my son's more interested in the fire science and fire research stuff than he is holding a nozzle, and I'm okay with that. I think he'll save just as many lives, maybe more, doing that kind of stuff than he will necessarily holding a nozzle. But I think that's one of the important things, is make it okay to bring your kids along. The truth is, all of you that stood up wouldn't have been here today if someone hadn't brought you along and got you on the bus. And I think that's important, is we've got to create an environment where the family doesn't resent the fact that you're a firefighter, but instead they're intrigued and want to get on too.
I think that's a great way to wrap that up, and certainly we have witnessed examples of that. And I think the one thing that I would add to that, just as a closing note and a challenge to all of you who are in the audience, is realize that you may be the family to some of those new young recruits. They may be looking for something that they don't have in their home and personal family that they find at the firehouse. So especially to all of you chiefs and company officers who are in the room, never underestimate the potential opportunity you have with each and every person who walks through the door and says, I'd like to get involved. Can you tell me how? Can you share with me how? And certainly, I think those of you who are here know the value of this week and what you're about to buckle your seatbelt and learn over the course of the next 3 days will help you be a better leader when you go back to your fire station. In my morning devotional this morning, I was reminded of the value of encouragement. So I end this kitchen table with sharing that with you. And the question was posed, how can you identify a person who needs encouraging? Anyone know the answer? The person is breathing. So my challenge to you as you go through your day today is to encourage someone. Reach out. You never know the difference you're going to make right here in the halls, on the exhibit hall showroom floor. You never know when you're going to touch someone and make a difference in their life forever. So thanks so much. Thanks to the panel. Y'all did a great job. And I know that Chief Jones is going to close us out and give us our marching orders of what's next. And there's a lot of good stuff on this lineup.
Yeah, my dad went to K&W Cafeteria the other day. I questioned that. But anyway, and I think that's what we're facing here is there's a lot of choices, a lot of things to do today. One thing I want to bring your attention to, it's not in your program, is immediately following this, right behind you in Ballroom C, is we're going to have a Bruno Unplugged moment, a little conversation between Chief Brunacini and Mike Galliano and Paul Combs, just kind of on leadership and bringing the perspective from a chief officer, a company officer, and a firefighter. And so that's going to be right behind you immediately following this event. We're going to be doing several other big room events throughout the week with Chief Lasky and others. And we encourage you to attend that. So again, that's right behind you immediately following this at 11:15. And then the exhibit hall is open. Again, you need to be back here for delegate orientation at 1 o'clock. That's very important because that's where we lay the groundwork for the business that you are going to make decisions on this week. And then, of course, we have afternoon professional development seminars at 2:45 and then again at 4:15. And so please make sure that you take advantage of all the opportunities that we have for you at this conference. It is your conference, and it's important that you take stuff back to the folks at home. So thank you again for being here today. God bless and enjoy your day.